The first episode of Attack on Titan was released on April 7, 2013. And after almost 8 years later, the final episode of the story was released. That like 6 hours before that we realized that it was not going to be the finale, but the finale of the first part of the season. Yeah, because what we saw on Sunday was just that. And as they did with Season 3, the showrunners decided to divide the final season in 2 parts, and also decided to tell us the same day as the grand finale was set to be released. So how long this season will be? We still have to wait for those details, as only 16 episodes were aired. Season 3 had a total of 22 episodes, and the first part of that season it aired 12. But as we have to wait probably and more likely for 2022 to learn how this 8 and then 9 years run is going to end, and if there is going to be a movie or a set of movies after it, we now have a pretty clear picture on the direction that the story is going to take. This season is very different from the previous 3 seasons, and that was said very early into the first episode, with my war opening theme song, that we are going to talk about it later on this video. By then, I could feel the change on studios from Wit to Mappa, and this change is felt throughout the story as there is a clear transition from what it used to be mostly a shonen story to a seinen. This is not about fighting mindless giants anymore, it's about human interactions. The story has deepened and thus turning a bit darker. From the very first episode, we learned that the story was going to be different. Even in storytelling, as there was, yes, a 4-year time skip. We start outside Paradise and introduce 2 new characters, most noticeably Gabi and Falco. Both of them will take a very important role on this first part of the season. We also are taken to Marley on current times. We already had a peek on Marley in the previous season, but now we get to experience it from other perspectives. And again, the story makes pretty clear that this rivalry between Marley and the Eldian people from Paradise is not only an historical conflict, but also a cultural one, as Marley was deep into the industrial era against the medieval Paradise. We get more insights on the concentration camps in Marley, which are truly scary to see how kids and others are brainwashed constantly, as they are said to believe that they are demons that have to purge their sins. Of course, there are multiple parallelisms with the real-world darkest chapters. In my opinion, this is brilliant, as it works as a perfect example on the transition between mostly a shonen story to a more serious tone seinen. Eren is a very different character now. We notice how his development took a turn into a more serious character on the later episode from Season 3. But now 4 years has passed, and his motivations go beyond avenging his mother. Now they are deeper and darker. This had an impact on his persona, as Eren himself had a shift on his priorities, turning into a more calm, methodic, and darker character. And I have to say, a way more interesting one, in my opinion. We get a background story on Zeke, the mysterious man within the Beast Titan, and oh boy did not disappoint, as we learn that he is not only a multidimensional character, but also Eren's half-brother. Big chunk of the story goes around Zeke and his motivations. We learn how he envied Eren as Grisha was more supporting on him, how he betrayed his parents, and at the same time how his parents did not have a lot of confidence on him, which had a huge impact on his personality and pushed him to a new mentor. Now, Zeke and Eren, although sharing the same father, they did not share the same mother, as Lina Fritz was in fact from royal blood. This is going to have a huge impact in the future, it seems. We also learn from his motivations that seems to be the same as those from his mentor, Dom Saber, is to change the body composition of the Ymir people, so the civilization would disappear within 100 years. Yes, mass extinction. In order to put an end to the conflict and free the world from the Titans. Is that what Eren really wants to do? We do not know yet. One of the most interesting characters in this season so far has been Reiner, as he is dealing with his defeat on Paradise. He is the sole survivor of the group that was sent there, taking a place that shouldn't have been for him in the first place. Although it is true that Annie is still alive, We know that Berthold was consumed by Armin on Season 3, and now we know that the third child sent to Paradise, a boy named Marcel, was ate by Ymir, who was just there underground. It was very bad luck, but we got an explanation how Ymir got her Jaw Titan powers. Reiner's story seems to be a redemption story, as he experienced Paradise as an Eldian. Not as a demon, as Marleyans told him he was, but a citizen of a civilization. Also, he now has the burden of being the sole survivor of a group of kids that went on a suicide mission. Gabi and Falco, two of the new characters in the story, are different from each other. Gabi fulfills the role of what a good Eldian should be, a warrior who knows how to follow directions, consumed by hate, and when seeing other Eldians, she just sees demons, not deserving to live free because of their original sins. Falco is more practical. He seems to understand that there are other perspectives, that there is always a solution. He thinks, then he acts, which makes him the main reason why Gabi is still alive on this season. Both of them seem very familiar to what Eren and Armin once were, which is very interesting. Captain Levi has a smaller role this season than in the previous one, but he's one of the few characters that remain consistent on this first part of the season. He's still a warrior and still very efficient. His interactions with Eren has not changed. He still sees Eren as that little punk that refuses to follow orders and gets everyone into troubles. However, most of the story focuses on his dynamic with Zeke. He won't forget what happened at the Wall Maria and Erwin's death, as well as the fate of his men on the last season. There is some real beef there. However, for Zeke's arc perspective, this conflict with Levi does not seem to have a primordial role, although he almost got killed by him several times. Levi's whereabouts are currently unknown, as we did not see him on the final episode of this part of the season, but I'm pretty sure that we still have a lot more to come from Levi in the future. Mikasa and Armin take a secondary role on this first half of the season. Mikasa still defends Eren whatever it takes no matter what, and Armin is still that boy that believes on a bright and hopeful, peaceful future, although he killed a bunch of people on Marley following Eren's plan. However, there is a breakpoint on one of the episodes, what I call the restaurant scene, in which Eren shows his new self to both of them. He tells Mikasa that he has always hated her, and beats the crap out of Armin. After that, the once unshakable friendship is now utterly broken. It is going to be very interesting to see how the arc of these three characters and their dynamic with one another is going to develop moving forward, as I particularly believe that if Eren is going to try to fix what he destroyed, he has to fulfill his goals first. As things as they stand right now, I don't believe that there is a way for coming back from this now famous scene. On this first part of the season, we're introduced to the remaining Titan, the Warhammer. The battle against Eren was said to be one of the highlights of the season. We're gonna talk about animation later on this video, but regarding the battle itself I was disappointed, as Eren never felt to be on a disadvantage. From his surprise attack to Mikasa's intervention, it seemed that Eren was always under control of the whole sequence, even with the Jaw and Card Titans on the picture. The only thing that stopped him to devour the Jaw Titan was an unexpected rise of the Armored Titan, as Eren had no other choice than to retreat. If it wasn't for that, the whole season could have ended on that same episode. Now, Eren possesses the Founding, Attack, and Warhammer Titans. Annie is still in her cocoon ever since Season 1 in Paradise. Armin is the Colossal Titan, and Zeke, the Beast Titan, now seems to be an ally. The three remaining Titans are the Card, the Jaw, and the Armored Titan. All of them are the allies. The Card Titan, Pieck, and her character development shows a woman that takes care of her fellow good Eldians. Although by the end of the first part of the season we discover that she is not as blind on Marleyan propaganda as Gabi is, but she is still going to fight alongside her brothers in arms. Sasha's death was definitely one of the highlights of the story, as I myself never saw it coming. which is weird because I'm used to have unexpected death across the previous 3 seasons, but somehow this time felt different, as Sasha was one of those side characters of the story that had a very well developed arc. Ever since the first season we learned about her. Across the story we had a background. We are introduced to her father and her joyful personality. Used more than once as a comedic relief, Sasha proved to be a valuable asset to the people of Paradise. Her death was very impactful, as she never had a chance for survival. This will affect the rest of the characters' personality, especially John and Connie. Flock, that suggested to throw the kids overboard on Sasha's death sequence, has turned bloodthirsty, and Hange, who also turned darker, has come to realize that she is not Commander Erwin, a character that will be missed on the alien side. She still tries to keep the order, being methodic with her actions, but her lack of leadership and character to handle certain situations put her men in a constant disadvantage. Regarding animation, which is one of the most criticized aspects of this new season, I have to say that the Warhammer battle sequence don't look pristine, but it did not took me out of the story. I've seen worse in current anime adaptations. Even in season 3 of this same anime, the Bearhole Colossal Titan was bad. Like, really bad. However, the sequence between Levi and the Beast Titan on season 3 was way better, of my opinion. Thus, although CGI does look rough at times, it's not the worst I've seen, but again, that is me. I did feel the difference on the soundtrack, as the previous one, the one from season 1 through 3, was a masterpiece. However, the new soundtrack is not that bad, and I particularly like my war opening theme. It's a reflection on the change of tone of the story. The lyrics, combined with a white background and bright colors, is used to set the premise that we are not on that medieval Paradise storyline anymore, but into an industrial, more dirty and darker era. I am not going to provide a rating for this part of the season, as it's only the first part of a 2-part season, but from what I've seen so far, it hasn't lived up to my highest expectations. Although it is true that they hyped it as the definite conclusion of this 8 years journey before telling us that it was going to be divided into parts. On my opinion, it is far behind of a very strong season 3, but I still believe that when all is said and done, it can have the potential to be better than season 2. So, what do you think? Did this first part of the overhyped final season is living up to your expectations? Did you like the changes to the characters provided by the new studio? Are you looking forward to the second part, or just quitting and read the manga instead? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember to like the video if you did, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always I wish you all a wonderful day.